And to discuss more about this enormous security and intelligence challenge that the French state is facing despite the huge number of people it's deploying, I'm joined by Cyrille Bret, a professor of geopolitics and security here in Paris. So there are an enormous number of people deployed on the streets, as we can see, not only in Paris, but throughout the country. There is emergency law. We may have emergency law here for 3 months. Who knows? Maybe even longer. The key question is, can France prevent another attack similar to the one we saw on Friday?
This is the tricky question. This is the major challenge that François Hollande will face during the last months of his presidency, and this is the tricky questions that many governments have been faced with over the last decades. The numbers are just stunning. The policemen staff have been soaring over 2 decades, and the funds allocated to the intelligence services have been soaring as well. But despite that huge national efforts, it will probably not possible to prevent any other attacks from happening on the national territory just because of the tactics adopted.
All right. Well, tell me more about why is it so difficult these days? What are the specific challenges presented by groups such as Daesh? Why is it so difficult to stop them?
In France, terrorists is very hard to tackle just for 3 main reasons. First, it's been always intertwined with organized crime. I mean, not petty criminals, of course, but networks linked with drug and with armed trafficking. The second reason is that the terrorist attacks are primarily targeted at the Muslim community in France, and the goal of the different series of terrorists coming from Algeria or from other countries is to divide the national community between the Muslims and the so-called national French. So France is the ideal target for terrorists, and that's why it's so hard to gather all the population around an effort to fight against terror. And the third reason is probably that the French Republic won't renounce its primacy on liberty, and it's always really hard after 2 or 3 weeks of the shock to pass a bill very full of constraints for the ordinary people. The French are not ready, I think, to live in a police state, and they won't give up the liberties they're enjoying just because of the terrorist threats. That's why it's so hard.
After the Charlie Hebdo attacks back in January, there was, I gather, a reorganization of the French security services. Is it a better system now for confronting this threat? What was wrong, and has it been fixed?
Okay, the bill that's been passed in January and February then was just the end of a very long process, more than a dozen of laws passed and reorganizations. The effort was financial. It was just amazing, 200 millions for the intelligence services, and an overhaul of all the intelligence gathering and the intelligence sharing among the different services. It's been implemented right now, and it's very hard to know how it's possible to go further in the reorganization of the services. Probably there will be a huge efforts focused on technologies, on new technologies. The French intelligence tradition is based on human factor. And now it's probably time for the French intelligence services to shift toward a more technological approach based on, of course, digital surveillance, which is really basic for the time being in France, and towards new medium of detection for the equipment used by the terrorists, because they're on the edge of technology and the services are not for the time being.
The people who are perpetrating these attacks, high tech, very savvy with online communication.
Yeah, they're geeks.
The French security service not so good.
They are trying to master and to be up to the challenge.
Right.
Let's hope it will, end up well.
Professor Bret, thank you very much for sharing those insights with us. In terms of the diplomacy, as I said earlier, I think President Hollande is very keen to push forward this new initiative to try and create a united front And in his speech this afternoon at UNESCO, he announced that he's going to have a very busy week next week. On the 24th, he'll be in Washington to coordinate Franco-American policy in the confrontation with Daesh. And then 2 days later, he will go to Moscow to have the same kinds of conversation with President Putin. Back to you.
Okay, Simon, thanks for that.